Good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming to the MSU Blockchain and FinTech Society first virtual panel discussion. My name is Ian Laster. I am the host and the virtual programmer for this virtual blockchain discussion. Before we begin, I just need to make a disclaimer that this is a discussion for educational purposes only and not a replacement for professional investment advice. I know some people were kind of confused on what this panel discussion is going to entail. However, the Student Blockchain and FinTech Society and the FinTech Center takes no responsibility for any adverse effects resulting directly or indirectly from this information. Now, let me introduce to you to our guest today. We have Mr. Tariq Meyers. He was the recently global head of belonging, inclusion, and employee experience at Coinbase. He is currently the vice president for strategy at Jumpstart, an all-in-one diversity recruiting program. And Mr. Samson Williams, who is the senior economist for Milky Way Economy and the author of The Blockchain and the Space Economy, which is book one of the Space Economy series. He's also an adjunct professor at Columbia University teaching blockchain technology. So I just wanted to get started on a few different questions because I want to get into some things here today. So Samson, how did you get into the field of blockchain, and which entry points do you see for college students and recent graduates?
I was confused one day, and I was talking to our CISO, our Chief Information Security Officer at Fannie Mae. I used to be at the time I was the Chief of Staff for Operations and Technology, which is for everyone who's out there learning SQL, Python, etc. Brush up on your soft skills, because if you want to be Chief of Staff of an Operation Technology Executive Office, you're literally there just to babysit leaderships and egos. So it's good to have some technical skills. Your soft skills are even harder technical skills to learn. So our CISO was telling me, hey, you should buy this Bitcoin thing. This was 2014. I didn't know what it was. So when I got a bonus, I bought some Bitcoin in 2014. Then later we had a discussion about blockchain, the underlying technology of Bitcoin, and what it could do for the mortgage industry, particularly around real estate transactions for title. We're not quite yet that we're not there yet, but I like to say that Bitcoin is to blockchain as porn is to the internet. And for that to make sense, when the internet was first rolled out, the majority of traffic on the internet was porn. It was like in 2017 or 2016, Netflix overtook porn for the most streamed thing on the internet. Right. Turns out you can do a lot more with the internet than just stream porn. So too with blockchain, the easiest application of blockchain are Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. But if you look beyond the cryptocurrencies, what are the applications for the technology? And so that's where I focus our time and energies on, is what are the applications and the use cases for the technology? And does that technology make sense for your specific business?
Absolutely. And Tariq, how did you first learn about cryptocurrency, and what's the best way for students to get started? Because I myself, like I said, I recently became inducted as a blockchain certified expert, but I want to learn. I'm a fast learner, and I always am willing to, I'm always up for a challenge, and I always want to learn new things. So can you, Tariq, can you go into emphasis on how students can, get involved and some simple ways to learn more about cryptocurrencies?
Yeah. First, good morning from the West Coast, from Oakland. And it's good to be with all of you. I miss the East Coast a lot. I'm originally from Boston, went to school in upstate New York, and somehow made my way, 2,000 miles away to start my career in tech. The first part of your question was, why crypto? What do you know about crypto? And to be honest, prior to Coinbase, I didn't know a damn thing about crypto. And that's just the reality of it. And I think that was reflective of a lot of folks who were just in the community and didn't really know about financial freedom and what this new asset that, after a white paper was dropped, mid financial crisis would mean for the future of our country. For me, I think the journey starts a little bit earlier, which I think is important for folks who are coming out of college or thinking about coming out of college, because I started my career like right after school. And so in 2014, I didn't know what I wanted to do coming out of school, right? I was really interested in politics, cared a lot about policy. went to school in Ithaca, New York, which was like a really politically charged, small little college town where every election, whether it was a student body president or mayoral election, matters, right? But still politically charged. And I did not know what I wanted to do, and that was okay because for anyone who comes from a Black family, and you're a first generation college grad, sometimes you feel like you have to chart your path, right? And so for me, charting my path was I was going to go to Cornell Law, I was going to go be a civil rights attorney, I was going to go do the thing that a Black man's supposed to do. This is what Black man's supposed to do,
Right.
And that's just not what my path was. My path brought me to California. I took a chance on a small nonprofit, fellowship. So don't always chase the coin. Chase the coin, but don't always chase the coin, right? Because I decided to take a $30,000, nonprofit fellowship with a bunch of other lawyers in an organization on the West Coast. And knew that I had other opportunities out there. I would have been the first person to graduate from school. I wanted to support my family, but I had to make a choice. And so I moved with no savings whatsoever. And that's where I started my career. And from there it blossomed, and it blossomed because I said, I want to start taking big bets. And so the first big bet that I took was on this small startup that no one knew about, that was competing against a big hegemon, and that was Lyft. And at the time, Lyft was so small that everyone was like, pink mustache, pink and purple brand, had no love and no opportunity whatsoever. Joined that, ended up finding a lot of success there as one of their not only first Black employees and first, employees who came out of college directly to work for them, but also, it was my first tech company. And that followed me to Coinbase, which again, I made a big bet on an industry that I didn't really know much about. But I was really excited to learn. And now I'm at Jumpstart, doing something similar. To answer your original question, what connects all of those experiences in terms of looking for opportunities? I was just curious. And the one thing that was important to me was my personal mission, which was how do we close the racial wealth gap, right, in different ways? And so I believe that transportation could be one way of closing the racial wealth gap because it is one of the largest, barriers to economic mobility for people who aren't living in transportation centers. And I knew crypto had some opportunity, because the Coinbase's mission was to create economic freedom for every person and every business. And the same is true for Jumpstart, which is to make the world more equitable by democratizing access to opportunities in tech and finance. So I didn't follow the technology like my brother Samson did, who probably is doing much better than I am if he was buying Bitcoin in 2014, and now I'm jealous. But I can say that I followed my personal mission, which was to do more for my community in any way I could, in any tech sector I could, because I didn't see a lot of reflections around me.
Man, you are seriously gold.
I just want to add that because the hardest part of anyone's overnight success is the first 10 years. I saw a clip somewhere where it's Usain Bolt and he's ran 199 seconds in his career. But no one sees the 2 decades of work that he puts in because he has 8 or 9 gold medals. But he only runs for less than 10 seconds every 4 years, or he did before he retired. So people think, oh, you just became successful overnight. It's like, no. Right. We have to go way back and see that first 10 years. So that first 20 years in Usain Bolt's journey. So in 2014, I'm sharing this with you because one, if you're a student, the hardest part of your overnight success is the first 10 years. It's gonna suck because when I graduated from Florida State University, I gotta go like this when I say Florida State University, by the way. I didn't know how stupid I was, or rather ignorant, because I was 20 years old and just ignorant to how the world works. You're gonna spend the next decade and a half learning how to fail forward. Right. Meaning you're going to try some things that don't work out, but don't give up, because if you fail once, you are a failure. If you fail and keep trying, you can be successful. Absolutely. You've only got to be successful once.
The key goal is to keep going. Never look back, never always think 10 steps ahead. Just keep going and moving forward. Life goes on. It's the ultimate mantra.
And so I know we're going to talk about technology, but Tariq said something that he had this well laid out plan for how to be successful. And so I'm the first person from my family to graduate from college. The rest of my siblings are just degenerates, but I love them. There is no straight line to success. Your success will look like a hurricane, swallowed in a tornado, swallowed in a pandemic, swallowed in racism, right? And you have to overcome so much. So don't worry if you're not on this straight line, the path of success. If you're going like this, means you're on the right path. Because ultimately you will get to address a situation like myself. So I'm a classically trained anthropologist. I studied anthropology. I learned tech out of people just hiring me. So I was like, oh,
Right,
sure,
right.
I'll figure that out. And so for the technologists out there, if as you're watching this, get a pen and draw 4 boxes and put technology in the first box, economics in the next box, philosophy in that third box at the bottom, and then regulations. Because when we're talking about blockchain and cryptocurrencies, there's a technical aspect of it. I typically tell everyone, I can teach you all how to make chess pieces, and in a decade, you might be able to beat me. Because just because you know how to build a blockchain doesn't mean you understand the strategy or how you implement it, how you build it. Right. And so that's a tech piece. The economic piece is for your business model, for your project, for what you want to do, does it make economic sense to deploy a blockchain, a token, or a crypto? That's a different conversation. That's not how you built it. It's does it make economic sense? Is the ROI there? The next part is that philosophical box. That's where do you care about data privacy? Do you care about data sovereignty? Why are you doing this? Why do you want to use blockchain or cryptocurrency or a token or digital assets? That's the philosophical part. You're not going to learn that in the technical classes. The last box is regulatory. And this is because people always say, what's my path in the blockchain? What's my path in the digital whatever? Right now, I'm leading in the space economy. There's so many different avenues. Because I'm an anthropologist, we don't learn tech. I didn't learn how to code until I was 32-ish or so.
How long did you learn how long did it take you to learn coding?
Oh, it's super simple when it's your job and you faked your way into the interview and you got a project due in 2 weeks.
Right, because I'm like, some people know how to operate with coding and others, it takes them, time. So.
And so this is where when you go into the workplace, I just found people who were stronger at it because often, and this goes to mostly your businesses will use waterfall methodology or agile. And so when you're doing what's called sprints, there are some people who just do administrative stuff for program management. They don't actually code anything. The coders, they hate doing the administrative stuff. It's a team effort. If you suck at coding like me, great. I will take care of all the administrative things, the presentations, talking to leadership, getting the other coders to take off their headphones, stop drinking Mountain Dew, show up at the meetings and communicate what they are. And this is how you can get engaged. And the funny part is when you look at your leadership is not technical. They are their leadership. They're there to inspire other people to perform. Leaders don't make followers, they make other leaders. Absolutely. So when you're a technical leader, it's good to have a skill set and awareness of how the technology works, but then there's so much emotional intelligence and human empathy that come into the role as a leader in the tech space. Right now we have a giant client, they invited me in. They're like, oh, we have this big operational problem, blah, blah, blah. It turned out their morale is shit. Their morale is shit because they're using the same KPIs, key performance indexes, for their annual reviews, for their quarterly reviews that were from 2019, when the biggest challenge their workforce is facing isn't technical or operational. Their morale is down. They don't care. They've been at home working with their kids in tight spaces, and their leadership has never said, you guys are doing a great job. We're going to give you X number of days off. We want you to unplug and talk to the people's heart. So again, when you say, what is my avenue into whatever the technical aspect is, there's many, many avenues. And I want to go back to that fourth box, which is regulatory, because this is for everyone who wants to be a lawyer. The future of law is you do know how to code, because we're coming up and creating novel new technologies, financial products and instruments, intellectual property every day. So as the tech folks build it, because the economic folks says you should because there's an ROI on there, and the philosophical folks said we should build this in an ethical way so as not to increase whatever ism it is. On the regulatory side, the compliance side, That's where the lawyers come in. That's where the compliance professionals come in, and they make it possible and make it legal. Because coming from Coinbase, they might think they're an exchange. They're really just a compliance shop.
I see someone has a couple of questions. Can we leave and come back? Yes, so this discussion is from noon to 2 p.m. So feel free to come back. And someone else asked, what would you say to a sophomore finance major who is aspiring to work in blockchain?
I'm gonna let Tariq take that one first.
Yeah, I mean, so first and foremost, I would say that being at Jumpstart has taught me, so why I got to Jumpstart. First and foremost, being an in-house D&I leader, I did some front yard and backyard work, which you're going to hear a lot about as Black and brown folks at an illustrious university, right, who are looking to really set their mark on the world, right? A generation that has arguably like the largest buying power right now, but it's still not really quite closing the racial wealth gap in terms of spending. And so I say that like you are the most sought after demographic in tech, hands down. And it's just a reality. And so when you start connecting with D&I leaders, or you start seeing that folks are coming on campus when the pandemic resolves or figuring out some virtual solutions, just know that it's no longer this mindset of, damn, I'm lucky to meet this company, but goddamn, this company is really lucky to meet me. And that's the mindset you should approach, where when people who will continue to do so inundate your campuses and your virtual lines with calls to come join our tech company, come work for us, come learn about us, come do this. If you haven't already heard those calls are coming. And part of Jumpstart's job is to try to make those calls happen. But I left the D&I space because I realized that the industry, the tech and finance industry, which Samson has just pointed to as like the leading industry for the economy today, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 25 years, like the future is tech. I felt like for the last 2 decades, you know, we've been hearing this talk about diversity and inclusion, like Black and brown folks, we want you to work for us. You know, brothers and sisters, there's a place for you here. But when brothers and sisters get to the doors on the first day, those brand promises of you can do your best work here. You can work on exciting technology. You can have some of the roles that Samson just talked about, right? They don't match the brand experience. You get there on day one and you look around and that one brother who was a brown face in a high place that you talked to do your interview process, you don't even know where that brother works anymore. Where is that brother? I don't even know where anybody is. You know, why does potato salad got raisins in it? Like all types of things, you know, as you start thinking about it. So so the reason why I came to Jumpstart was because for a number of reasons, but the number one reason was there are so many companies out there who don't have the same brand equity as Coinbase, Google, Apple, Netflix, Amazon, Facebook, Tesla, right? They just don't. But there are so many hundreds of companies out there who are doing so well financially, who are working in some of the most interesting spaces and on the most interesting technologies that our world has ever seen. And they're looking to connect with you, not your senior year, right? Not your junior year, not your sophomore year, but your freshman year, and some even in high school. And the question is, how do you connect with these folks? And this is not me trying to plug Jumpstart. That is not my goal. But Jumpstart's one of those ways, but Jumpstart isn't the only way. There are tons of nonprofits, right? Tons of social enterprises, tons of community-based organizations, tons of private organizations who are looking to connect high potential, beautiful Black and brown talent with opportunities in tech early, because they know that if they can get to you early, right, then they're investing in their future of work. And despite the pandemic being so ravishing to our communities, right, the pandemic silver lining is that it democratized access to talent that previously was out of reach. Meaning so many companies that I just mentioned have moved to remote first. You're going to start hearing this language where you don't have to sit in an office anymore to apply for a job, and you don't have to sit in an office anymore to look for an opportunity, right? And so I say that, like, start researching, start looking now for these opportunities in these organizations, not just in the crypto and blockchain space, though you should, but in all of tech, because they are looking for you, and it's just about finding those right organizations. So you could start with Jumpstart. You can follow Blavity. I'm going to plug my brothers and sisters over
Blavity
there.
is a great nonprofit in LA that's been dominated.
That's right. Follow Blavity on Instagram. You know, follow Jumpstart, Power to Fly. I mean, Next Play Events, which is an organization founded by one brother from LinkedIn and one brother from Lyft. Next Play Events. They're just, for our Black and brown brothers and sisters, or our brown brothers and sisters out there, there's Techaria, the largest brown tech community in the US. Just keep these orgs top of mind, because it's never too early to connect with them. And I've seen firsthand, right? People getting offer extensions their sophomore year and their junior year. And for folks who are in finance, and I'll leave you on this point because I can be long-winded, but for the folks who are in finance or thinking about finance, you're already starting to see whispers of this with your peers at other campuses, right? When Accenture and Bain and BCG and PwC start coming to campus early, like sophomore, junior year, to try to nag their high potential talent, tech is doing the same thing. Right. And so get ahead of the curve, connect, and start looking for those opportunities now. Blockchain or crypto agnostic, you should be looking.
I see we have some Q&As in the comments. Someone asked, I believe, I'm sorry, I'm bad with names. So her name is Rakaria Burgess. Yeah. She said, she asked, how can I go into administration even if I have a technical background or major computer science?
Excellent. So Rakaria and Kobe, you both have a very similar question. I've written it down for you right here. Let's see. Can you see that? So the smaller circle there is the bottom is your comfort zone. Where the magic happens is not in your comfort zone. So I was told this in my first review at Fannie Mae when I was chief of staff, to get out of my comfort zone, because part of when you're in particularly if you're in a leadership position, you're not there to do the easy shit. We hire people for that. Right. And so the day-to-day and routine. So Rakaria or Kobe, if you have a technical background, get out of your comfort zone. Go join the debate team. And why? Debate team will teach you a skill set. Communication is the hardest skill set you will ever have, particularly when you're living in a mayonnaise corporate America setting where you have to code switch. It's like, oh man, I wish I could better articulate what I'm saying. And so if you have a technical background, the hardest thing you're going to do is present to leadership, present to people who control this purse strings, why they should pick your initiative, why they should fund your initiative. So it's a little bit different. This is why I tell people, practice your public speaking, because you don't do it enough as coders and technical people. And when you go to start a business, I see so many of them fail flat because they've never had to get in front of 200 or 300 people, maybe 5 or 6 investors, and explain succinctly what their business model is and how they hit that ROI. So that's the first thing is join the debate team, develop a skill set, because public speaking is a skill set. The other thing to keep in mind, and Tariq mentioned it, when you get into the office setting, you're going to engage in office politics and real politic. And if you're from a technical background, you might not be familiar with the concept of real politic, in which case go take a political science class so you can this is what makes sense. Right. So I see that Jada asked a question about if you want to get into investing. And so that's a highly charged question. I just tell people you can lose all of your money in investing. There's one time I invested into a startup in 2016. And if I had just put $500,000 on the floor, put gas on it and threw a match, it would have been as useful as the experience. But that experience of losing $500,000 enabled me to come forward to 2020 to 2021 and make some strategic investments in some other businesses that are in the same vertical. So I say, if you're going to invest, you need to invest in the businesses that you use the good products and services of. If you're using someone, it's like everyone who buys Jordan shoes, there's a meme somewhere that shows if you buy the Jordan shoe versus if you buy a Nike sock, what the difference is and the value. So that's my only investing advice I'm going to give you at the moment. Invest in the goods, products, and services that you use. when it comes to the Black community and the brown community, there's a thing I'm a super big fan of called equity and investment crowdfunding, because it gives you the opportunity to invest in the businesses that you use, so that if you were a small shareholder in Lyft when it was at early stage, I forget the gentleman's name who came from Lyft, because he invested in Lyft when it was called Zim Rides or
Right.
Yeah, when it was low.
Yeah.
He invested like $20,000 into it when it was Lime Ride.
Zim Ride.
Right.
Yeah.
And in 2012, it rebranded itself to Lyft. And then he had an exit in 2016 or 17 at $100 million.
Right.
He's the ex-eBay guy, I forget his name. But the moral of that story is those micro investments into early stage startups, they are risky as fuck. It's a great way to lose all your money. However, you got to go back to that first 10 years. You're going to go invest $1,000, $10,000 today and get back $1 million tomorrow. It's like planting a tree. You plant the tree, and then you have to wait that 10 years to see what is this tree going to grow up.
Right. Start small and grow big. I also want to piggyback on that advice. I'm pretty sure like a lot of people invest in Robinhood right now. It's very user friendly. I myself invest in Robinhood. So I know like a lot of people have been telling me to start there, invest in there. Like you said, invest in the stocks that we value the most, like Tesla or Nike or anything. So you always want to start off slow and then eventually move to a bigger platform. So I just want to kind of throw that out there. I think someone asked another question. What would you say is the biggest challenge or obstacle you had to overcome in your path to becoming successful within the realm of blockchain and the fintech world?
Yes, Jack. Jumpstart's my company, and here's, you know, so I'll be honest. Like I found, like many of our people, like I found financial services and fintech to be really intimidating for me, right? Like I'll be honest, like I didn't grow up in a household that talked about investing and micro investing and, you know, like why I should try to look for opportunities that help me build wealth over cash. And I just didn't have that acumen, right? Like that just wasn't my thing. That wasn't my reality growing up. My reality growing up was not having a family car, like trying to make ends meet, you know, having some basic bank account, like not knowing, like it just felt like a paycheck to paycheck, trying to figure things out down the line type experience. Like that was me.
The mundane experience.
It wasn't even so much mundane, my brother. It was just more so like, that's our reality.
Right,
and the part that's jarring, like I grew up in Boston, where like the average net worth of a Black family is $8, like $8, right? That's just a jarring reality to then come out of a community that is so racially segregated and so economically segregated, and then to go to a place where, you know, you can't even look across the street here on the West Coast without seeing a new tech company, you know, being born, and this industry minting millionaires every 4 years by just joining a company early. It was wild to me, and it was a wild experience. So the biggest challenge that I had coming into fintech was a fewfold. The first was owning my past, right? And so the past for me was understanding that like the Reconstruction period in this country was like the last, in my view, like promising opportunity for Black folks to reach some level of financial racial equity in this country. Like Reconstruction, like 1865, 1870, like wild, right? And since then, this gap, the gap that I keep referring to, the gap that I'm really passionate about, the gap that you're hearing about in Congress right now, of trillions of dollars it would take to reverse the harms of being in servitude in this country for almost 2 centuries, right? The racial wealth gap, like that gap is very jarring. But I'm inspired by that. I'm inspired by the opportunity that our people have when in the context of fintech and finance, because I'm seeing more brothers and sisters year over year graduate and move into these roles, and they're bringing these voices and these experiences to the table, whether they're serving B2B, so you're serving other businesses, or even other consumers like Robinhood, you know, Cash App, Venmo, etc. So the biggest obstacle that I had to have is walking in is that not everyone shares my experience. Like when I walked into my first fintech firm, I didn't see a lot of people who look like me. And at first there was some shame in that experience, right? Of damn, like, you know, here it is, you know, this person to my right has been investing since he or she was 12, and this person already has an IRA Roth, and you know, since working has contributed X amount to their 401k. And I'm sitting here like, damn, I just got here. Thank you, you know, I'm so happy to be here, etc. And I was kind of, you know, there was some shame that I experienced at first. And then I realized that my worldview, like growing up in Boston, like actually was really powerful in the workplace, and I had to own that. It started at Lyft, right? Where, you know, we started talking about transportation and equity in ways that we didn't talk about it before. When we started talking about Black and brown communities and the impact of fingerprinting, right? So if you're a taxi driver in certain, you know, jurisdictions, you have to be fingerprinted, but how does that disproportionately harm communities of color? We talked about this at Coinbase, when we realized that how the hell do we talk about economic freedom for every person in every business, but there are still people in this country who look like us in this space who still don't even have access to a checking account. They're not even thinking about blockchain and another financial system when they're still just trying to struggle to put food on the table and don't even have access to a checking account, but do understand electronic cash payments because we're Venmoing and Cash Apping and Apple paying each other all the time. And so the path was more so just owning that story, turning that like a feeling of imposter syndrome into like, wow, I can actually help. My voice helps shape a brand. It can help shape a business, and the decisions that we make for our communities are consequential. And then moving forward for me, to answer the question more directly, I think the biggest obstacle was remembering that I have a place at this table, and that my voice is valued, and that my skill sets are valued, and that if I'm not at the table, then, you know, I think as John Lewis said, if not us, then who? If not now, then when, right? And so I knew I had a space there, and that my space was valuable, and that people were willing to pay top dollar to have me be there. Forget a folding chair. Shout out to my sister, Shirley Tristan, but didn't need a folding chair. My chair was right there. The question was whether or not I was gonna sit there and take it. So I think I was my biggest obstacle. Yeah, there are some systemic obstacles in keeping us out of opportunity that I see every day as a D&I leader, but I realized that I was my biggest imposter in feeling like, again, as I said before, damn, I'm lucky to be at this pre-IPO unicorn called Coinbase or Lyft or Jumpstart. And now I feel, God damn, they are so lucky to have me here, right? And knowing that talent power, I wield that now very well. I get what I want in terms of equity and feeling like I am realizing my value, and I have runway to bring our community's voices to the table in a way that's heard and respected. And so getting rid of some of that imposter syndrome for me was an obstacle, but it helped me own my journey much better downstream. And that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. There will be people who are in decision-making positions who will try in many ways, as just we've seen, to make sure that our tech firms, especially in finance and fintech, look a certain way. But the reality is that like the face of America is changing. It's becoming more brown and intersectional every day, as is the world. And so businesses are starting to realize that these promises of inclusion that they made in 2020 with the rising racial justice movement are now needing to be cashed in 2021 and beyond. So everybody needs to go chase the bag and go cash in, and I think hold these companies accountable for the promises that they've made in terms of saving a seat at the table for communities who look like many of ours.
So as of today, I'm pretty sure you guys have, I don't know if y'all keep up with the financial news, but as of today, Bitcoin is close to $60,000 as major companies jump into cryptocurrency. So for example, like Tesla has jumped on to it, MasterCard and Bank of America, New York have also shown their support. Do you think the current bull run is different from the late 2017 bubble, or is it about the same?
So I want to, right now, I just checked the price. It's $49,735. So,
okay. So it went down.
Question. The anonymous person, what's the business hurdle for me becoming successful? One, I'm dyslexic. I can't spell, read, write, but I write books. It's a minor detail. Because that's part of my superpower, because I can think of abstract concepts and things. So if you have some kind of learning if you have a superpower that someone has told you is a learning disability, I'm trying not to curse so much, but F them, right? If you have this skill set, employ it, use it. Because even though I don't read so well, I write so well, it doesn't stop me from writing books. It doesn't stop me from leading teams. So if you think you have, someone says you have a learning disability, think of it as a superpower, and then go find that niche that you can use your superpower in the most. I tell people, when you're 1 in a million on a planet of 7 billion, almost 8 billion people, there's 7,000 people just like you. So in many ways, it's unfair that I'm giving this presentation and Tariq are giving this presentation, because we're unicorns. I was born in Waller, Texas, outside of Prairie View A&M University. It's got about maybe, I don't know, 3,000 people in it to this day, from a tiny little town. And so it is possible for you to rise through the ranks, go work at your Fortune 50 companies. But in many respects, we're the variable, we're the outcast, we're that 1 in a million, we're that lottery, we call ourselves lottery babies. It can be done. The journey is not duplicated, because each person's journey is unique. So I say this to talk about self-esteem and imposter syndrome. That shit drives me nuts. Someone saying I feel imposter syndrome means some white person told you this is how you should think, behave, and act. Because this is when people tell you to be professional in the workforce. I had a job offer. They asked me if I was going to cut my hair, and so I told them I'm out. Because when you impose these arbitrary and capricious standards for professionalism and look and hairstyle and what you wear, that's just bullshit. That's that 400 years of legacy of slavery coming into the workforce. And so I want to tell everyone, the thing about self-esteem is that you determine your self-esteem. Yes, the haters can talk shit about you. Yes, the devil can get in your head. If you allow them to live rent-free in your head, it will contaminate your heart and fuck up your ego, fuck up your mojo. And it's so important to keep that right mindset, because self-esteem is like self-worth. The definition is in the name, self-esteem, not hater esteem, not detractor shade esteem, but self-esteem. So often the biggest challenge that we all have to overcome is giving yourself that pep talk, giving yourself those positive affirmations. I can do this. I'm worthy. I should be in this room. I should have a table. I don't need a lawn chair.
You are your own competition.
Right? You're your biggest competition. And when you can overcome yourself in that doubt, I put Rick Ross where my money at before I go into important meetings to get myself in the right mind frame. That's where you can bring your whole self to work. I tell my team, put on your Viking hat. And that means we're about to go in like Vikings. We're going to sit up straight, roll our shoulders back, stick out our chest, and be present 110% of ourselves. Because I tell them, my ancestors were imported as were enslaved. That's how we got here. And so I am their wildest dreams. And so I didn't come here to play second fiddle to demure because it might be embarrassing, because I might get a paper cut in the course of my work. So I want you to keep that in mind. Give yourself a pep talk before you go into an interview, before you go into a big meeting, before you go to pitch. Just tell yourself, you can do this, you got this, let's go, get yourself hyped. And then we can talk about whatever the price of Bitcoin is and investing. Because Rakaria asked, how is the financial market being affected by the pandemic? And are there some things we should be aware of? There's many theories that because people are at home, that is one of the reasons that Bitcoin looks like such a interesting investment opportunity. Partially, it's the boredom economy. What else can they do if they can't go outside? And so people are saying, hey, let's learn about this new digital thing that exists on the internet where we've all migrated to over the last 12 months. And so keep that in mind. I don't like to give investment advice, period, much less for Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies, because my big challenge with Bitcoin is I invest in businesses that produce revenue. Bitcoin does not produce revenue. Coinbase is worth $100 billion as of earlier this week, because Coinbase, I understand their business model. I understand how Coinbase generates revenue. Bitcoin does not generate revenue, because Rakia also asked, how do you find startup companies to analyze for future investments? We look for either companies that have current revenue, because the best capital in the world is revenue, are companies whose revenue could grow with a little bit of help. And so because Bitcoin does not generate revenue, I don't have any opinions on investing in Bitcoin.
Okay. Tariq, do you have any concerns, or you good on that end? because I wanted to get into another topic.
No, let's go ahead and move on, brother. I think Samson captured that sentiment really well. And, you know, I'm an ex-Coinbase employee, so I'm super aligned to that. I think the beauty about Coinbase's business model is either way they making money, right?
Right, absolutely.
Whether Bitcoin's high, Bitcoin's low, Coinbase is doing all right. So yeah, it's a great business model. Either way, but yeah, brother, let's move on. This is your time.
So I'm pretty sure y'all aware of the singer and famous philanthropist Akon. So he recently is starting opening his this cryptocurrency city in Senegal called the Acorn currency. So pretty much he started trading on the global crypto exchange that's also being launched as a means of payment. So he's also launching it in Kenya and Senegal, and it's pretty much like he has this big infrastructure plan to develop it called Akon City. Now my question is, how can Baltimore or the DMV as a collective engage in blockchain infrastructure to support and sustain small businesses?
So Tariq, you want to go first?
Yeah, if I understand the question correctly, you're asking me, like, what is the potential of blockchain and crypto to support small businesses? Am I hearing that right?
Yes, not only in small businesses, but infrastructure, because, you know, infrastructure is constantly getting developed and it's increasing. So I just try to figure out how can, you know, a city like Baltimore, you know, develop or, you know, as a collective support blockchain infrastructure or invest in blockchain infrastructure.
Yeah, I think, like, I'll let Samson get into the mechanics here. I mean, because I'm sure he and I are both watching the way that Miami is developing as is potentially the next, you know, crypto city. And I think there's a number of factors why that's happening in Miami. And also, you know, mind you, it wasn't, you know, I think it was like maybe 2 years ago or so, Samson, when we had our first state starting to collect taxes potentially in crypto as well.
Yes.
You know, I think that crypto and blockchain have a lot of opportunity to, I think, be the electricity to things that we know really well, right? And I'll say electricity less around crypto, more around blockchain. Smart contracts, right? Employment verification, or just any type of information verification powered by blockchain. There's been talk about voting infrastructure being built on top of blockchain. Taxes, electronic cash payments, direct deposits, you know, potentially lending, right, on the blockchain downstream, where for folks who have been historically left out of traditional financial services, the opportunity to actually get loans or lend on the blockchain. Opportunities for remittances to stimulate the economy both ways, right? So not just remittances, I'm sending money to another country, right, in a way that avoids, you know, fees that could be an extra few $100s in my pocket, but vice versa, right, coming back to the US as well. I think that I just think that there's so much in, if you think about the way a city operates, right, or any business operates, there's so much opportunity around privacy, around verification, around opportunity that I think cities could adopt. But like any technology, and this is where I'll kick it over to Samson, I think with any tech, and this is why I've been really curious about the conversations that Mayor Suarez and others are having in Miami, which if you're not following that news, you totally should. There's a reason why a number of tech companies are starting to have conversations with the mayor down there, including the co-founders of Coinbase went down there recently. But I think with every technology, there's an opportunity to weaponize it, right? And not for good. And so, and the list goes on. There was a conversation about, printing 3D guns on the blockchain and, and these ideas of privacy and money laundering and not having it be traceable and just a number of things. So with every technology comes an opportunity to weaponize it. And I think, I remember last year, last February, we went up, we took a delegation out to Capitol Hill, and we met with some folks in the progressive caucus that you probably wouldn't imagine us meeting with on the blockchain side. And the number one concern, including a sister who represents the third poorest district in the US, where if you figure that out, you'll know who I'm talking about, but I won't call her out here, who was very pointed with us about the concerns that she had in helping communities make the jump, right, without being harmed by companies who are supporting the blockchain. So not just as consumers, but even as you start thinking about infrastructure, and utilities, et cetera, there was this concern that communities who have already been harmed, who have already been left behind, being even more harmed by the private industry who are providing access to this infrastructure. There was a real concern there. And I think that concern is happening. And so,
especially in Baltimore.
In Baltimore as well. I just think if you look downstream, start following how the government starts talking about crypto, the SEC will be the first, I think, friendly body from a regulatory standpoint to crypto and to blockchain, but really start looking at like how the House and Senate, particularly the Agricultural and Commerce Committee, starts talking about crypto, and you'll start hearing when it comes to the intersection of blockchain and infrastructure, the concerns that I think the folks who represent us have. But let me send it over to Samson.
Yeah, I'm trolling Herbert over in the chat, and I'll get to that.
I was like, who is this?
So there is an infrastructure play for blockchain. Someone asked earlier about networks, blockchain for networks, I believe, in the chat. Let me scroll up right quick. I forget.
That's out to you, by the way, Herbert.
Who that was. There's somewhere in the chat, someone asked about blockchain for networks. So one of my businesses, we're focused on the space economy. Right now, the space economy is worth $400 billion. By the end of the decade, it'll be around $3 trillion. Why that's important? Because where's my mouse? I don't see it. In space, you have satellites. Someone else asked, what is blockchain? So we're going to give a quick blockchain lesson. If we're in a group text message,
take notes, because
take notes.
Giving out a lot of gems.
If we're in a group text message, Ian's there, Tariq's there, Herbert on the chat is there. I have $100. I send Ian $10. We can see this in the group text message, right? It's distributed, it's timestamped, it's a ledger. You can scroll up and down. It's immutable, because if you don't think a group text message is immutable, send a picture that's not safe for work and see if it ever gets off the internet. So we have a timestamp, distributed, immutable ledger, which is a group text message that Samson sent in $10, Ian sent Tariq $5. So Herbert has no money in this group text message. So if Herbert says, hey, I have $100 million, anyone can be like, hey, I checked the blockchain, AKA the group text message. And Herbert, you don't have any money. We can all verify this. It could be public or it could be private. So the question is, does your business need the ability to have a timestamp distributed ledger of data that's either public or private? 99% of the time, the answer to that is no, because you just use a database. However, when we're talking about the Bitcoin blockchain, what the Bitcoin blockchain does is it created a timestamp distributed ledger of records of debt that we think of as money that is publicly available. It's so well encrypted that you can display this information publicly. So this is where if you trying to take over the banks or get rid of money, blockchain is just a really great way of encrypting records of data, which is why the real future of blockchain-based technologies is in cybersecurity, where this comes into the space economy as well as terrestrial here on the ground. In space, you have a bunch of satellites. If you replace the satellites and call them nodes, there's about 3,200 satellites around the Earth at the moment. If you treat the satellites as a node on the blockchain, as a cell phone in that group text message group, now the question is, what data do you need managed across your nodes, across your blockchain nodes in space? And this is where space and the space economy is such a growing space, because everyone here is part of the space economy. This Zoom meeting, there's a satellite beaming us down. If you have a GPS, a global positioning system on your phone, on your smartwatch, this is a Fitbit, I can run and tell me where I'm at, in your car, you're part of the space economy. If you think, again, the space economy only works if you believe the Earth is round. You believe the earth is flat, you're like Herbert, Bitcoin is going to the moon. And so I'm going to troll you all day, Herbert, by the way. And so when you look at the space economy, it's that digital infrastructure that people here on earth will also use, because all of our financial information is digital. We're going to use the technology that we develop, not only blockchain, but also artificial intelligence, natural language processing. Natural language processing is, hey, Google, hey, Siri, hey, Alexa, when you're talking to your device. No, Google, I don't want to talk to you at the moment. And so it's that combination that brings us into the fifth industrial revolution. And the fifth industrial revolution is digitally native goods, product, service, and infrastructure. It started with dial-up. You guys might not be old enough to remember dial-up. We're at 5G right now. And then what comes next as we connect our wearables, as we connect our different electronic devices, as we move into a fully digital currency ecosystem in space. So terrestrially, yes, we will have we'll have smart cities. You can't have a smart city without a smart grid, without smart technology, without digitally connected devices that run off of 5G networks. The 5G networks, they will be encrypted using blockchain technology because they need to encrypt the data. So it's a ledger, distributed, and can be public or private to ensure, particularly if you have semi-autonomous vehicles or autonomous cars, that no one hacks their communications, so they stay on track. You'll see this first in shipping and logistics, where the big ships the cargo ships will dock themselves, cranes will unload them, and then the semi trucks without a driver will go from the dock to the Amazon distribution center or the distribution center, and then be delivered to your door, maybe by a drone, which again, the communication between the operation center and the drone is encrypted. And that's where I look at blockchain technology for the most important part. So I don't have enough time to troll you, Herbert.
Yeah, I see someone had actually mentioned Tesla, so that was going to be my next question. So Tesla, I'm sure if you all know, they invested up like over $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin, and they said they would start accepting payments into Bitcoin. Do you think more companies need to jump into Bitcoin, or why do you think Elon Musk invested $1.5 billion?
I think that we're going to see what the SEC feels about, the Securities and Exchange Commission feels about his activities on Twitter, because he, in many ways, it could be say he's manipulating the market that he's engaging in. Because in order to execute that $1.5 billion purchase, he had to engage an OTC agent or someone like Coinbase weeks, months before they actually executed that trade. He also took $1.5 billion worth of carbon credits that were going to expire next year and converted those into a Bitcoin investment. From a business perspective, he made money. And this is where it's crazy. Tariq mentioned—
Not money, shmoney.
Right? He made money. And so he didn't make Bitcoin, he made money. He had a liquidity event. And this is why Coinbase's business model, whether the market is up or down, they're making money. They're taking out fiat. They're like, oh yeah, cryptos are the greatest, but they only get paid in fiat. Their revenues are generated in fiat. And so on one hand, you have Bitcoin, which is, I like to call it a digital gummy bear. You have the digital gummy bear that Herbert thinks is going to be worth $100,000. And earlier he said the reason it's going to be worth $100,000 is because people are going to invest into Bitcoin. And that's great, Herbert. That's awesome. How does Bitcoin generate revenue? And then we're going to have a long pause because it's not a business. There's no CEO and it doesn't actually generate revenue. You can use blockchain as an infrastructure tool if your business needs a distributed timestamp ledger of encrypted data that's public or private. But otherwise, what do you use Bitcoin for? And then Herbert's going to say, oh, banks are accepting it as a means of currency or transaction. Use cash or a credit card. Use your watch. Because digital currencies have been around since 1956 when Diner Club first came into existence. Most of us get paid via our debit card. They don't actually give you your tuition money. It's on a ledger somewhere. It's already digital. And so we've had digital currencies and digital payments for the last 70 years or so. So when it comes to Bitcoin, Bitcoin is the first generation of blockchain technology. The easiest application of Bitcoin, of the Bitcoin blockchain was Bitcoin. However, that's the Model T. Bitcoin is the Model T of blockchain technologies. Now we're looking at What's the hybrid cars? What's the electronic vehicles? What's the Tesla of decentralized ledger technology? And those are two completely different things. A Model T is a vehicle, but a Tesla is a vehicle too, but they're about as far apart on the evolutionary scale as a chimpanzee is for myself.
Absolutely. I see we have somebody asked, Carlos Thompson asked, any suggestions for entrepreneurs to tap into startup funding, specifically geared for minorities? That's a great question.
I like to say every dollar tells a story, and if you tell your story well, dollars will come listen to yours. You've never needed blockchain or technology to make money,
Right.
product or service. My first business, I was an epidemiologist. I did indoor air quality testing. My first 6 months as a 24-year-old, I made $430,000. And that ruined my life because then you couldn't tell me shit because I just go make more money than you. You gotta come up with a good product or service that you can sell off the bat, or that you can tell that story where people see that vision, like, I want to invest in you.
Yeah, I have to agree with you as I'm reading some of these questions, and this chat's wild. I love it. So I'm just like, damn, invite me back. So there's so many biggest. Not everybody can be an entrepreneur. I feel like, well, everybody can, but not everyone's built for it. For me, it took me a while to find that entrepreneurial journey, just because I felt like I had so much to learn. But I mean, we've been entrepreneurs since day one, right? When we were across the pond. So that's just the reality of it. What I would say is there are so many funds now that want to help out brothers and sisters in this space. Backstage Capital, Harlem Capital. I mean, the list is just out there to the point where they may not be as well funded as an Andreessen Horowitz or an A16Z or a Polychain Capital or a Tiger or whatever, but there's a lot of funds out there and a lot of VCs who are really looking for bright, young brothers and sisters to do the damn thing. And even some legacy funds, like some old school funds that have usually been an old white boy network, who are also looking to fund people's projects and fund people's ideas at the angel and seed round all the way through. It does take some work on your part, right? To like really look at what these VCs are, but there's a fund, it feels like, popping up every other week. And it's just wild to me. And it's geared to, creating more equitable investment opportunities for brothers and sisters like you. So look those up. And then obviously I'm a big fan of YC. Y Combinator is another kind of program or incubator for potential startups. There's not enough of us who look like us out at YC, but the brother who co-founded Twitch, who's also a brother, I believe CEO now or plays some leadership role. And so yeah, just put yourself out there, but also do your research, because there's a lot of money that we're leaving on the table.
Yes, seriously, invest, do your research, do everything that's going to.
In the last 2 minutes, I would like to answer Obsidian's question. They say, does a currency need to generate revenue though? Serious question. Okay, if the currency doesn't go up in price, if the cryptocurrency doesn't go up in price, if it has a fixed price, particularly if it's in theory like Tether, who got pinged by the New York State Attorney General, Letitia James, who's a Black woman out of the Southern District of New York. If you're saying your crypto, I'm sorry, when I say that Tether got pinged, Bitfinex and Tether got kicked out of the state of New York yesterday because they lost $850 million globally. Then they had to pay an $18 million fine to the New York Attorney General, who's a Black woman named Letitia James. So if your crypto is pegged to the dollar on a one-to-one basis, what do you need the crypto for? Just use a dollar. If the crypto goes up in value, you're like XRP. Ripple created XRP. They're in a class action suit both in California and in the Southern District of New York because they produce an unregulated security. So your business is your business. Mind your business. Whether you're a taco shop or you're a car wash company or a SaaS company, that's your business. Blockchain is a tool your business may use if that blockchain makes money for your business. Tokens and coins are a fundraising mechanism for your business to help your business scale. You might not need any of these for your business. You just need to focus on generating revenue. And so if a cryptocurrency doesn't generate revenue, why are you using it?
Absolutely. All right, so we are actually going to get into the second half of this panel discussion. The second half is I'm going to introduce more, we're going to be learning more about specific opportunities and hear from some recruiters from different companies such as SEC, JP Morgan Chase, and Deloitte. Let me introduce our guests. So our first guest is Mr. John Moses from the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission. He is the Deputy Director in the SEC's Office of Investor Education and Advocacy. He previously worked in the SEC's Chairman Office and in the Office of Minority and Women Inclusion. We also have Ms. Aaliyah Redmond from Deloitte, where she is the current Senior Manager and Career Coach. And we also have Mr. Brandon Medina from JP Morgan Chase. He is the Global Technology, Diversion and Inclusion Program Manager. And Brandon also sits within the Global Technology and Talent Attraction and HR function at JP Morgan Chase. So pretty much he manages the firm's external partnerships with global D&I organizations where he works closely with the entry-level software engineer program, and he also recruits teams to attract top-tier diverse talent. So let's give a round of applause for our recruiters today. Welcome, guys. How are you today? I know that was a long first half of the panel.
Good. Thank you, Ian. Good to see you.
So how can students be advised on best to capitalize available resources, including employment or internship opportunities? I love your background, by the way.
Should I jump in on that, Ian?
Anyone can freestyle.
Yeah. So I mean, there are a number of ways, right? So there are some technology platforms that are pretty important in the college market right now. So I'm sure everyone has heard of and maybe has a little bit of experience with the Handshake tool, which is a career management platform. You know, I think the platform itself is awesome because it is a cross-campus platform. It makes our students very accessible to a number of companies in the virtual world. It's become even more important over the last year or so as everything has been virtual. And I know for one, as Deloitte, we utilize the tool very heavily. So that is certainly one way. I know some campuses are not necessarily on the Handshake tool, but may have a career services platform within their career services office that's managed. So Simplicity is another common platform, et cetera. So that's an online platform that I know students use.
Especially at Morgan, Simplicity, yes.
That's great. I know that in some pockets, you know, there's probably some opportunity in terms of, you know, student adoption of these technology platforms, but I'll absolutely say that companies in the marketplace are most certainly utilizing them, and if you're diligent about checking and you know, staying abreast of what's on those platforms, you'll certainly find many opportunities posted across a variety of industries within corporate America and otherwise. So that's one resource. And then, you know, a student's network is comprised of peers, you know, professors, administrators that can provide, you know, sound and strong advice related to their career paths and/or their exposure to various careers as well. So I would say a student's network is also very important in terms of providing not only information, but very important firsthand information related to various career paths and experiences that students might pursue.
Absolutely.
I'll jump in there. Hi, great to be with you, Aaliyah, Ian, and Brandon. I think that was really helpful. I know that the SEC is now using Handshake also, and I know from our Office of Human Resources they're getting some value out of that. Increasingly, they're on LinkedIn as well, recruiting. But taking a step back from a you know, sort of broad perspective, it's really thrilling to join everybody after that last panel, some of which I was able to catch, and thinking about the discussion that was had around investing and you know, opportunity, you know, really thinking about all of this as part of your wealth journey, right? So people have jobs because they want to contribute. to an organization, to society. But hopefully part of that is also making an income. Certainly in our office, in the Office of Investor Education and Advocacy, we want to encourage people to invest that income wisely, to build wealth responsibly over time. So certainly happy to discuss some of those topics as well. But I think this actually sort of, segues really well to the last panel. One other unique part for those that are thinking about public service, one other platform that is crucial is called USA Jobs. So this is the federal government's hiring and HR platform. It is different than most other. The experience you'll have there is different than you'll have on a lot of other sites. But it is the best place to register, to be updated for opportunities at the Securities and Exchange Commission, the other federal financial regulators like the CFTC, the CFPB, FDIC, and lots of other acronyms. And you can set up alerts, and you would also apply through that platform. And I can provide a little bit more context and tips for that as well. And then one just quick disclaimer: as a federal employee, I am representing my own views and not necessarily the views of the commissioners or my colleagues at the SEC, but hope that you'll find the discussion useful. Thanks.
Yep. So I'll jump in real quick. So good to be with you all. I think John and Aaliyah, you all hit on some good points. I just wanted to add, from our perspective, utilizing the talent network form. I know our organization utilizes talent network forms whenever they go to virtual events. It's an opportunity for students, regardless of their age level, to indicate their interest with that said organization. And I know in the industry, others do that as well. And it gives you the opportunity to stay abreast. Our campus, our recruiting teams use that. They market to everyone who's indicated interest. And another point that I would just kind of call out is kind of doing some homework and going out to those organizations that you want to work for. A lot of organizations this year had to be innovative in the things that they provided, since everything is virtual for the foreseeable future. They are putting on virtual programs. We have ourselves at JPMorgan Chase a monthly academy session that you can sign up and learn about a different topic. It could be about diversity and inclusion. It could be about blockchain. They've had that recently in the past. It could be about the company culture, and I know a lot of organizations are doing that as well. So that's just a tidbit of advice there.
Absolutely. And my next question, do you guys have any innovative tips for the importance of student preparation and engagement ahead of landing their ideal job?
I don't know how innovative, my thoughts will be, but I think there's some very basic but very key and important critical steps to go through in terms of preparation. I think that I'll echo what was said earlier on the panel by one of the panelists. I think one key element is really starting early. And that means when you set foot on campus as a freshman, starting to do things like organize your resume and get your resume together, seek feedback and get feedback so that you can continue to refine it as you gain additional experience and can add to it. In that you start to think about your brand as a student and thinking about careers that you want to brand and market yourself to. So keeping that in mind, I think throughout your college career is important. And then I would say that a big element of it is just that it's practice. You develop your resume, and then the next step is you start applying for roles, and then you begin interviewing. So prior to going into your early interviews, spending some dedicated and very deliberate time preparing yourself and practicing, whether it's research on the industry or the company that you're going to interview with, and then actual practice. You never know what you're going to face in an interview, but some questions you can anticipate that are common across the board. Another thing that you can anticipate needing to share with an interviewer is your elevator pitch, or sort of your background. When an interviewer asks the questions, tell me a little bit about yourself. You can
I'm still
sort of
working
wing
on
it and, sort of wing it and, say whatever comes to mind that day, or you can think about a very, impactful way to tell your story up to that point in your, student or professional career, such that that question, I look at that question as a softball, right? It just gives you an opportunity to really tell an interviewer exactly what you want to walk away from that, what you want them to walk away from that conversation with. And then it'll be followed up with additional questions, but that is a very typical question. So I would say preparation is key, particularly going into interviews. And then it doesn't stop there, right? If you are so fortunate as to present yourself well and to receive a job opportunity and accept it, then you keep preparing yourself to get ready for the actual, whether it's an internship or full-time opportunity. So just, I think having a mindset of constant preparation, I think, again, tying your network of mentors and peers into the process of preparing, and just, treating it as sort of a continuous opportunity to improve as you move through various phases of your career path.
Absolutely. Does anyone have any pointers on how to develop soft skills? I know like a lot of students still struggle with developing soft skills as well as hard skills. So any pointers on that?
Yeah, I have first of all, that was great, Ali. I was taking some mental notes there. Where have you been my whole career? I think in terms of developing soft skills, there's some sort of classic books on this. There's I think there's one called Never Eat Alone, right, where you can get some tips on networking and building a community of supporters. Like with a lot of things, having more at-bats helps, right? So investors talk about this. I think that Samson was talking about this with regard to some failed early investments that gave him connections and expertise and sort of domain knowledge that helped him understand future opportunities. So if you have a bad interview or you have a bad informational interview, or even if you're trying to network and connect with someone on LinkedIn and it doesn't work, think about what you can learn from that and apply to a future endeavor at all different stages of that process, right? From the very earliest sort of cold networking outreach through to getting to a second or third or fourth round interview and not getting the role. That's all opportunities to learn. And so don't, that's like with investing, maybe don't put all of your your eggs in one basket. If you have a sort of portfolio approach, I think that can help. The other, these things are this is sort of a cycle and an ecosystem, right? So if you have this network that Aaliyah was talking about of peers and professors, they should all know what your career goals are, your internship goal is, right? So if you're, a business or a finance or a computer science major, those professors should know you because you go after class and you speak with them, you go to office hours, you tell them what your goals are. They should be, this is multiplying your potential points of contact to their networks as well. And if you have a success or a failure, share those learnings with your peers. And they're going to be thinking about you, they're going to be supporting you, partly because you're paying, you're adding value to that network. So that's I think some perspective that might be helpful.
Absolutely. I'm glad you touched basis on, the professors needing to know what their students are capable of, or just to get a little bit more insight, because I think there's a lack of mentorship on campus, not even just on Morgan's campus, but with all like HBCUs and PWIs. So I just think like mentorship right now is very important amongst the professor, the staff, the faculty, and even even like job recruiters or financial advisors or something. I think that's very important. I think Rachel asked the question. Okay, Brandon, you provided the website. Got you. Yeah, can you by any chance can you guys provide the links to any internship opportunities available per company?
Yes, absolutely.
Same here. And just to want to kind of so for JP Morgan Chase, and I think a lot of other organizations that for 2021 we are full, unfortunately, just because the recruiting for that season happens in the fall of the previous season. So anything upcoming would be anything open for 2022, which is anyone graduating in December of this year or May of next year. So that'll be internships and full time. But I'll link out to our page for you all to review.
Absolutely. Someone asks, what do you need to succeed in a virtual internship? That's a great question.
I think you need to be flexible and adaptable. I mean, we're all in situations where we're not certain, what our upcoming internship summers will look like necessarily. There could be an element of in-person, it could be completely virtual. I think the key is to be adaptable and flexible. And then I think, each individual has to figure out what works for them in terms of how to approach, work at home. So for some, that might mean they need to, wake up at a certain time and, go through a preparation sort of ritual and be sitting in front of their computer by a certain time to feel like there's a sort of a separation between home and work. Others might, sort of ease into the day a little bit differently. The other thing I'll say is, you should understand and need to understand the expectations of your employer. So there may be expectations around attire. So some may be very, casual and flexible because of the environment that we're in, but there may be situations where you need to be in business attire or business casual. So understanding the company norms, understanding the expectations, and then putting yourself in a position to present yourself in a professional way, despite, sort of the limitations of being virtual. So, being cognizant of your working environment, if possible, being in a closed space, making sure that your work environment, although it's going to be somewhat non-traditional, somehow simulates, the professional environment that you would typically be in if it were an in-person internship. So, I mean, I think everything that you would do in if things were normal still applies. It's just, you have to think about how to apply those things from a virtual standpoint. And that might look a little bit different based on your particular home situation. So you just have to be cognizant of what that is and how to adjust.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for that. Any?
Yeah, just on this is obviously an interesting time to be having an internship or an early career full-time job, but in a way, it lets you develop expertise at this remote work, paradigm that we're all living through, and it will be more natural over time with telework expanding on average. These are some really good opportunities to develop some of these skills. But habits are really important too, and sort of like Aaliyah said, reading the room, so to speak, remotely is tough. But really try to notice, how do people dress? How do people handle client calls if you're on a client call, or large group meetings? Cameras on or cameras off, right? Often people suggest trying to have cameras on and let people see you and think about you and know that you're engaged and participating. But it is, it's more of a challenge, but it's probably even more important. And then that's the kind of thing also, especially during an internship, but really throughout your career, that you can ask, right? So if you have a mentor or a boss or a peer that's been there maybe for a little while longer, have that specific conversation where you talk about, the group's culture, the group's norms, how to be successful, what to watch out for. Having those, very they can be friendly and informal, but still deliberate conversations can really set you apart by helping show the rest of the team that you notice the details, that you care about the team, and the sort of the protocols and norms can really help you out and avoid avoid problems in the medium term.
Absolutely. Someone asked, Brandon, I'm sorry, did you want to voice your opinion?
Yeah, I was just gonna, I think Judith actually just put it in the chat, but I think, now more than ever in the virtual setting, everyone is, either in Zoom or Microsoft Teams or whatever, platform the organization uses. So it's an opportune time for you to take advantage and reach out to as many folks as you can, because if you would have been in person, you would have had, I think everyone touched on it, the opportunity to make an in-person impression and kind of network that way. But now, it's kind of gift and a curse where you're actually able to, reach out to as many folks as you can across. If you're a global organization, you can reach out to folks any time zone, any location, and just put some time under the calendar and, kind of pick their brain and get to see, what it is that, that they do at the firm or the organization, and how, how they've been successful, how they've kind of navigated their career. And that can essentially, at the end of your internship, if it's 10 weeks, 12 weeks, or whatever the case may be, you would have grown a network that, you'll connect with them on LinkedIn and throughout your collegiate career, whether the next year or so, you can reach out to them for advice. I don't think there's anyone that would not, take that call or reach out to, because, everyone understands now more than ever is an opportunity to further engage and stay connected via Zoom or Teams.
Absolutely. Someone had asked in the chat, will this recording be, will someone have access to the recording? Yes. My next question is, do you guys have any summer internship opportunities that you want to emphasize on? Because I know a lot of students are applying, well, for myself, I'm applying for a lot of different internships right now. So any emphasis on the internship, specific internships that you guys have available?
So there are some for 2021, but I'll have to echo what Brandon said, which is, it's become so competitive to recruit students that many companies, Deloitte included, are recruiting very early for internships for the following year. So while there are limited opportunities for internships this year, there are just a wide variety of internships that we have posted for summer of 2022 across all of our businesses, and there will be more. So if you are particularly a sophomore right now, this is sort of the sweet spot right now for sophomores who are looking for internships for next year, their junior years, because it's pretty wide open in terms of opportunities. And what better way than to prepare yourself for your junior year than to already have an internship lined up that you can then build on, for future. So certainly there are a number of summer 2022 internships posted right now across all of our businesses that are currently visible, will be visible to any Morgan State that goes and looks right now on Handshake. So yes, definitely internship. We also have some early identification of full-time hires for next year as well. So while we might not have internships for this coming summer, one or two of our businesses is already recruiting for full-time hires for next year as well. So any student on the call, whether you are a freshman, junior, senior, sophomore, I'd recommend to go and take a look at what's out there and give consideration to what might fit your path over the next year or so. But yes, a lot of opportunity posted right now.
Great. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and for I'll echo the the planning ahead element here. So there's I think this sort of ebbs and flows, the the extent to which, especially the financial services sector, but others as well, are sort of going really early. And I think part of your preparation is closely monitoring the trends and the deadlines. And one of the ways you can stay on top of that or even ahead of that is, again, by proactively and preemptively developing some relationships at the firms that and organizations that matter to you. I'll say for the SEC and for most other government agencies and the federal financial regulators, many months in advance is when you would want to be applying. Right now, we are, I think, open for fall. Somebody asked about co-ops in 2022. Well, that's good to be thinking that far ahead. I think we're looking at fall of 2021 now opportunities. And at the SEC, you can, there's legal internships, there's business internships. These can be sort of economics or accounting, finance, even communications design, a wide range of internship opportunities. Those roles are are posted now, and they can be full-time or part-time during the academic year. So you can fit it in between your schedule with school, and then we like to have full-time in the summer, but part-time or full-time during the fall and spring. And I want to emphasize too that while we're headquartered in DC, we do have 11 regional offices, all of which in places like Miami, Philadelphia, New York, Boston, LA, many others, all of which take interns throughout the year. So go on USA Jobs and set up your account and register, and the team will have my email if anybody wants connections to the HR team or to our Office of Minority and Women Inclusion, to ask more specific questions.
Yes, absolutely. If you guys can drop your contact emails in the chat, that would be great, because I know a lot of other students are want to ask questions or connect with you. This is amazing. Brandon, any insight?
No, I'm just trying to pull up my my LinkedIn feed just to post in here, but I think from our perspective, I know there are questions about anything in 2021, but unfortunately, I did reach out to the recruiters, and they are all full for 2021 opportunities. I think they wrapped up all their interviews early in February, but I do know from a sourcing and marketing perspective, they will start promoting their 2022 opportunities next week, starting in March. So if anyone is interested in any opportunities, and it's not just for technology, we have operations, marketing. We have a wide array of opportunities upcoming. I recommend, I'll post a link here, but just set it. Just go ahead.
Absolutely.
Your interest, and you'll get those emails when applications start to open up.
Absolutely. I heard marketing, so I'm like, okay, that's up my alley. So absolutely. Okay, so we have another question from Rikaria. She asked, are there any opportunities for tech students that are interested in finance? So Rikaria, they're putting in the chat now on different opportunities. And guys, feel free to ask any more questions right now. This is just Q&A. If you guys want to raise your hand or anything, just feel free to do that.
This is something that it really resonated with me when Samson was talking about his a learning difference as a superpower. And this is one of those things that's hard to know when you're in school, but it becomes more obvious once you're working, is that your superpower is, as a student, one of them in any case, is that people are much more willing to speak with you, right? Because when you're a student, you're interesting and you remind people of their college years and they really want to help you. When you graduate, they might feel that way, or they might think you're a future competitor, or maybe you're being annoying. It's much less likely that you will get a response, but people have warm feelings about students that are ambitious and trying to find their way in the world. So leverage that. Reach out to people proactively and just state, I'm a student, right? And I'm not looking for a full-time job right now, but I want to learn about the industry, about internship opportunities. I want to tell you a little bit about my strategy and see what you think. You'll get a lot of responses. You might need to get a lot of at-bats, but you'll get a lot of responses. And planning early and thinking about that ahead of time, again, is something that you can do now, but you don't have that opportunity, in the future. And so the earlier you start, the better. And I'll keep making my investment plugs. This is the case with, with your investing future as well. So even if you think you just have a little bit of money, or you think you have, just a few possible job contacts, right? Do that and get started. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is just get started.
Absolutely. And I see we have two great questions from Michael Liggins. He said, I would like to hear what a day-to-day role is like, and what should first-year new applicants expect from the culture of your firms? Yeah, that's a great question, because I think a lot of students get discouraged when they go through work in those entry-level positions, or those big companies?
I think one thing on that, I think while you're looking, for any job, you should ask what the company culture is, because I think Tariq or Samson, I forget who on in the previous panel said, organizations do a great job at recruiting, but day one, what does it really look like at the organization? So, now more than ever, D&I or IND inclusion and diversity, or diversity inclusion is important now more than ever. But I think, I know, speaking from JP Morgan Chase, I think, when you start as an intern, or, within the program that you have, it's a 2-year program generically. But in addition to the stuff that you're doing on your day-to-day, there's opportunities for you to get involved with the business resource groups, or for us, the communities that we have. So we have 6 communities in technology for women, Black, Hispanic, veterans, accessibility.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it's an opportunity for you to find people that are either part of that community or are allies, and for you to get involved. So, I think, my advice here is, as you're looking through the whatever organization you want to join, ask those questions, see what their company culture looks like. A lot of organizations post, video clips on YouTube, so you can take a look at that. You can go to their website and see what their commitment is. But I think seeing where you see yourself in the organization is going to best suit you as you move on in your career.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
I would share from a Deloitte perspective. I think our culture is, and a lot of companies would probably say the same, is somewhat shaped by the work that we do. So as Deloitte, we are a client service organization. So we consult to clients across a various, number of topics related to their business or accounting or finances, et cetera. And so in that we serve clients, we do that typically in a project environment. And so it's very much a teaming culture. Everything that we do is in teams. You work with a team of individuals around, similar and common objectives to serve a particular client in a particular area of the business. So very much a teaming culture. So we have practice areas that would be considered teams of individuals that serve a particular industry or a particular, sort of service that we provide to clients. So I think that drives a bit of our culture. So then in extracurricular firm activities that individuals are involved in, we typically develop, strong project teams to manage those special projects as well. So very much a teaming culture. In serving a client, we are, required, our professionals are required to be, innovative problem solvers, right? And so it also develops a culture around somewhat of a flat culture, right? That takes into account all perspectives, that encourages professionals of all levels to speak up and provide your input. So, there's kind of a going, kind of a joke or sort of a known expectation that if you're in a room full of Deloitte consultants, the only way you really know who the partner is because of their gray hair. So in other words, everyone is expected to speak up, everyone's expected to contribute. So that creates somewhat of what I'll call a flat versus a, sort of hierarchical feel or culture within the organization. And then to sort of piggyback on what others have shared around, sort of the diverse environment and really sort of embracing each individual. Our current sort of expectation is that we encourage everybody to bring their authentic self to work, whatever that might be. So whereas, perhaps in the past in corporate America, there's been more sort of strict expectations around dress or appearance or what not to do, we're sort of really opening up the concept and encouraging our professionals to be who you are, bring that to the table, and not only for our professionals to do so, but a culture around accepting that in one another and really embracing the differences that we all have. So that's very much a part of our culture that I see growing even more and more, in the current environment. So I think those are, and there's many more things that, we can probably all talk about related to culture, but I think those are a few kind of top 3 that I'll talk about related to Deloitte.
Yes, absolutely. And shout out, thank you for that. And shout out to Ryan Cooper. I do love the team approach as well. That just kind of brings me back to, you know, high school and then even your early years of undergrad when you're working in different groups that you may not, you know, be familiar with, but at the end of the day, you're still getting the job done. You're still getting the initiatives done, just working closely in your teams with like-minded people. So I'm glad that you touched basis on that.
Just
he said
something I'd share, Ian.
I'm sorry. He said he was an internal auditor for 10 years. Deloitte was one of our clients along with KPMG. Nice,
Awesome.
nice. Go ahead, John. What were you about to say?
I was just going to say that thinking about what the day-to-day life for an intern at the SEC is like, I think it, you know, it depends on, you know, like others have shared, which office you're in, what kind of work you're doing. We do have a lot of law students that are interns, but also, as I said, you know, business and a wide range of other functions. You know, often you'll get a project that is, you know, the idea is that you would complete and deliver a project during your internship, which gives a really strong sense of accomplishment to it. And so a lot of your work will be, you know, with usually a small team that might involve another intern or two and you know, and SEC professionals. So if you're in our division of economic and risk analysis, for example, you might be, you know, completing a research paper and delivering it to, you know, to the senior staff in that organization, and that becomes part of the, you know, the body of work and the reference materials for the, you know, for the commission. You might be working on filings for public companies or reviewing other documents. I would just say too that you can also shape what the day-to-day is like. Again, like I've been mentioning, by making it clear in a polite, professional, positive way what you want to do. So if you get assigned something that that's not your first choice, whether that's, you know, the overall division that you get assigned to, you wanted, you know, X, but they put you in division Y, or the particular, you know, piece of work that you're doing, you know, if you can find the time and the energy to complete that work as well as you can, right? That then gives you the opportunity to say, hey, I'm doing, not that you don't want to say I've, you know, struggled with this or I'm not excited about it. Can you give me something else? It's, I knocked this out of the park. So can I also do this additional thing, which I have a particular interest in? That helps you broaden your network. You might be able to, you know, work on other projects that you wouldn't have otherwise had access to. And so the internship is often much more flexible than a full-time role. Everybody knows you're there for a limited period of time. And so while it does sort of feel, and in some ways is like a long job interview, it also will have a lot more flexibility to dive into things that you might otherwise not get the chance to do early in a full-time role.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Thank you.
And I'll add in that, you know, in terms of our internships, I mean, we have internship opportunities at Deloitte available for all students, freshmen through juniors, and then obviously full-time opportunities for seniors. So it may look different, you know, your freshman year versus your junior year. So typically our freshman internships are designed to give students exposure and just a general experience to our business, really an opportunity to learn about professional services, the work that we do, you know, maybe spend a couple of weeks shadowing one business, a couple of weeks shadowing another business, and then do some leadership, you know, development content. Sophomore year, it, you know, takes a step up from that, and then it's more dedicated sort of rotational experiences across the various businesses, maybe spending a couple of weeks in each business, a little bit closer to the client work that we do. And then as a juniors, we bring on interns to staff on engagements and to fully work with clients side by side with our analysts and all of our other professionals out in the business world. So we see those freshman and sophomore opportunities as preparation for the business internship. And then as others have said, then the business internship becomes sort of the, you know, summer long interview and preparation for the full-time offer. And, you know, we love it if we get students our freshman year and they stay with us, you know, and sort of grow with us over the entirety of their careers in college. So that's kind of our aim. We know students have a lot of options and a lot of sort of, you know, opportunities to do different things throughout, you know, different summers. But we certainly have those opportunities from freshman year that are progressively sort of, you know, more and more fitted to our client service work, you know, the junior year.
Absolutely. Thank you again for that. Someone asked about where can we apply for the internships. So the internships, they previously just listed the website to look at them. If you scroll up in the chat, Joy Williams said, obviously interns or early career professionals don't have much experience. How do y'all suggest approaching things you don't know or things you mess up on? Does anyone have any insight on that?
Well, I think the expectation and understanding is that students early in their academic careers don't have a lot of experience. So what we're looking for is strong academic performance and strong aptitude, willingness to learn, those soft skills that someone mentioned and asked about earlier. So if you, practice and can hone your soft skills and you're open to learning and you're a strong academic performer, you have the basis and foundation for what we're looking for to bring in, during your freshman and sophomore year. And then again, those experiences, then you sort of gain more information and exposure that will prepare you for the internship later in your college career.
Absolutely.
This is a question that comes up a lot from our interns and certainly early career professionals. So the SEC is a government entity. There's certain things that have to be done a certain way, and other things there might be more flexibility on. There's also a lot of acronyms. I mentioned a few earlier from some of the other federal financial regulators, but in any organization or any industry, there's going to be a lot of jargon. There's going to be a lot of sort of traditional ways of doing things or norms. If you get an assignment, your supervisor says, I want you to do X, Y, Z, but you just actually have no idea what X, Y, Z is. You might ask briefly then, but there's probably an intranet, a corporate intranet that has information, right? Did you plug that term into that? Did you talk to your peers about what other resources are? There's probably an example of something similar that's been done very recently, right? So you have an idea of what kind of scope and depth and format we're talking about for a given deliverable. So I would ask those questions early and try to use some resources and show some interest in learning, like Aaliyah said yourself, but then take a stab at it, and if it's not quite right, you'll hopefully you'll get more at bat. So do your best, but don't be afraid to have that internship be a learning process. That's a big part of it.
That also kind of ties into my own personal experiences with certain jobs or internships. I think I'm like overqualified because I have a versatile skill and background set. So like you said, like some students, they ask that question all the time, and some students may be a little discouraged, when the follow-up for certain jobs or internship opportunities don't follow through. So again, just persevering, just keep continuing, still, being the bigger person and reaching out to them. Thank you for your time and consideration. If the job doesn't work out, also just keep following up with different recruiters, different prospects or people of contact, depending on which job or opportunities you're applying for. So I think that's very important. Please, can someone send the link? Can someone send the link to the internship again? Because a couple of people are asking them.
And Ian, if you don't mind too, if it would be possible, I can also provide them via email. Yes. If we can send them out to all the participants following the call as well, if that would work.
Absolutely, because I'm sure they have additional questions to ask. Mm-hmm. So it looks like Jeremy Jones has asked this question. He asked, how is blockchain going to affect the accounting and business process and the financial regulations? What are good suggestions to get a master's in with the advancement of technology on business operations?
Well, that was a long question. I may have to come back to some of that, but the first part of that is, how will blockchain, I think, impact, the accounting profession, for example. As Deloitte, I think blockchain technology is impacting us in a couple of ways. One, it is impacting potentially the way that we perform our work for our clients. So, for example, access to information. It may change the way that we're accessing information when we're performing an audit for a client. And then the second way is that it may change the nature of the work that we are consulting to clients for. So for example, many companies are going to be considering how blockchain technology applies to their business. And so we as their consulting partner would then help them think through and consider and eventually implement technologies related to blockchain that will sort of, support their business.
Absolutely. John or Brandon, did you guys want to pitch in on that question? Because I know it was like two parts to that question.
So there's well, I have to say that both of the previous panelists gave a shout out to the SEC, which I want to get those little clips. We're going to use those, but which I appreciated. This is obviously an area of interest for for the SEC on the investor education side. Not speaking about blockchain specifically, but I'll post the link again. We have a large section and a lot of material. So we have a large section on investor.gov on digital assets and others, and then we put out a lot of material on our investor education Twitter account that's relevant here for a bit of a deeper dive on the policy side. So how does this impact the SEC? What is the SEC's thinking on some of these topics? And again, especially at the intersection of sort of some new technologies and new practices with really foundational securities regulatory standards, right? Where those meet is a new organization within the SEC called FinHub. So I'll just post the link there, and you can check that out for some deep dives on the intersection of regulation and policy and financial technology. And this is a good example of I'd love it if you read SEC's material on investor.gov or on our FinHub site. But it's a great example of the kind of thing that you can and should be doing if you want a career or an internship in this space, right? If the more references you have to updated material, I mean, you saw how fluently the previous panelists, Samson was dropping information about, the latest pricing or the latest regulatory change. He was referencing some cases at the federal and state level, I believe. So the more conversant you are with it, the more you can show a potential employer or internship opportunity that you really care about this and that you're going to be an enthusiastic, motivated member of the team, which probably, well, at least in my experience, even more than hard skills or deep experience is what people really want to see. If I give you this opportunity, are you going to grab it? Are you going to be enthusiastic? Are you going to contribute? And having a lot of background and doing a lot of reading and developing as much expertise as you can. Somebody mentioned earlier, Google is your friend.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
Yeah, the information is out there, and so show your interest and your dedication by spending your time in a certain way rather than another, right?
Yes, Google and YouTube are like your best friends. They like this, so definitely take advantage of those.
Ian, if you don't mind, I saw a question in the Q&A early on that I want to address around resume and creating your resume. Just point to,
yes.
If you don't mind, the career coach in me is coming out. But
yes,
for college students, I would say a few key things related to your resume. One page. So, the general rule of thumb is that, your resume should be one page if and until you have more than 10 years of work experience. So for students, that absolutely means your resume should be one page. Two, select the right format and structure. How it looks on the page really matters. It's your opportunity to make an impression and many times to make a first impression on paper with potential employers. So how it looks on the page definitely matters. I'll sort of continue that point with not only, just aesthetically how it looks on the page, but the other reason why the format matters so much is because the latest stat that I heard in terms of how long an individual is going to look at your resume the first time they pick it up is between 5 and 10 seconds. And so within that 5 to 10 seconds, you want them to get all of the key information that you want them to take away. The school that you, as a student, those things are going to be the school that you attend, academic performance, if you want to list your GPA, extracurriculars, and any internship experience that you have. So you want those things to jump off of the page. So you have to strategically use, not to overuse, but to use formatting such as bolding, indentions, etc., so that the things you really want to jump off the page within 5 to 10 seconds. And then the last thing I'll say is, utilize your resume as an opportunity to tell a story. What do you want the HR professional or the hiring manager to walk away thinking about or knowing about you as a candidate when they put your resume down? So it's not just an opportunity to sort of regurgitate, a list of roles and responsibilities. Tell the story. What are your interests that then potentially tie into your job interests, which potentially ties into your major? And, that all kind of tells a story as to why you are then applying for the role that you're applying to. So just really think about the story that you're trying to tell, maybe draft your resume, read it over, get some feedback, and then really challenge yourself to think about whether the resume is telling the story that you want to tell at that point in your college career.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And Ryan Cooper, shouts out to you again. Fiverr, I've been hearing Fiverr a lot. Like Fiverr is definitely a great tool to use, not only just for personal desires, but academic or professional initiatives as well. I also want to pitch out that I was a former career ambassador with the MSU Morgan's Career Center. So if anyone needs their resume or cover letter critiqued or done, feel free to email me. I'm going to leave my email in the chat box. Because I remember there were a plethora of different Morgan students who were still struggling with their resumes or cover letters, and they didn't know where to go. They didn't know where to start. So definitely want to emphasize on that. Ryan said you can leverage work you don't have time to complete on Fiverr. Yes, just make sure they sign a non-disclosure agreement. Yes. And Judith asked, Brandon, can you tell us more about JPMC and your work culture?
Yep. So from a JPMC perspective, so again, I sit in the global tech HR function. So I sit out of Delaware. I'm originally from New York, but I've been here for about 7 years now. I think the culture at the firm is just, I think that's why I've actually stayed here for so long. You definitely get to meet people, all over the globe or global organizations. So I'm always, either conversing with folks who are in Seattle and Texas, or even I have colleagues that are over in the UK and India. And we're always, kind of pushing the D&I agenda forward. But I think, it's a very inclusive environment in the fact that, when I first came in here as a Hispanic Latino, I didn't see many folks that looked like me. So I went ahead and joined some of the, the business resource groups, which we have are Adelante, and then the communities, the Hispanic community, which I currently sit in as the attract lead in Delaware.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it's just, it gives you, they give you an opportunity to meet like-minded individuals, people who
absolutely
invest in you and see your success. Because at the end of the day, as a career professional, as you reach out to folks, you're going to be the future of the organization. So that's, my earlier point, when folks very rarely, if at all, no one will ever turn down an opportunity to connect with you, even the most senior level folks. So, as a young student out of college, for everyone on the call, I would say, as an intern specifically, or even, in your first few years, make those connections, because you do not know how far those connections are going to go. I've had 3 roles at the firm now, and they've all been because I've made internal connections. I never had to, apply for a role.
Yes.
That saying, your network.
It's your network. I was just about to say that. Wow, that's crazy how we. Wow.
I tell people that all the time, that an organization is going to want to go ahead and invest in you, and
right.
do a great job at the firm itself and investing in talent and making sure that you do feel, inclusive. And I want to say that, within the last few months, they rolled out an internal firm-wide training. I had mentioned that in global technology, we have communities for Black, women, Hispanic, LGBT plus, and veterans and accessibility. And we had an internal training put on by colleagues who are members of those communities, and actually shared some of the things that they see at the firm that as the unconscious bias for folks who are not part of the community or not a member. Sometimes it takes you take a second, take a step back and say, what can I do differently to foster a more inclusive environment for the organization as a whole. So that was something that they rolled out that I think pretty much hit home, and it was a huge success, because now dealing with with employees all over, different cultures, you get to really take a step back and see how you can build a better environment for everyone there.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we have 5 more minutes left. I'm going to wrap up these last 2 Q&As. Carlos asked for John, any SEC resources on strategies for avoiding pitfalls for startup entrepreneurs? That's a great question.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the question. So if you're, so the SEC's role in that, right? So again, I'm in the Office of Investor Education and Advocacy. So we're talking about, helping people think through responsible investing, asset allocation, diversification. You're talking about how to, again, the intersection of your question with the SEC is, if you're an entrepreneur raising capital for your business, what do you need to consider? We have a lot of resources on this. There's a lot of talk. I think Samson on the previous panel was talking about, for example, equity crowdfunding, right? Which is, a topic of interest to a lot of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
How do you protect yourself? How do you make sure that you've got your, that you're using the right intermediaries, et cetera? It's a capital raising option, but it is, still requires that you follow certain protocols. And so the answer is to go to our Office of the Advocate for Small Business Capital Formation. You heard that right. I am going to post a link to their site. You can reach out to them directly and have a conversation with them and check out their resources on raising capital. Also, Ian, Judith, others, if it's of interest, I'm sure that Martha Miller and Sebastian Gomez-Ibero, their leaders, would be very happy to do a session just on these topics around raising capital for entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
For your group.
So Jeremy asked if you guys could share your business emails. I told you they wanted to ask more questions to follow up. For Aaliyah, Carlos also asked another question for Aaliyah and Brandon. Any links or resources to share for startups?
Yeah, so I posted some links within the chat itself, Carlos, but just a quick overview that JP Morgan Chase has this program called Advancing Black Pathways, where a few years ago our CEO took a step, took a hard look and said that we need to do more within the Black community. So they've targeted, or they've committed to hire, I think it's 5,000 African Americans over a 5-year period. But also, in addition to that, from an education perspective, they have wealth. There's a wealth pillar, if you will. So I posted that that link here, and it gives you an opportunity for how JP Morgan Chase is helping Black-owned small businesses and startups get their feet off the ground and get the ball moving there. So I posted that there. I recommend if you all take a look at that and see how in a local level how you can engage JP Morgan Chase and within the initiative itself.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Aaliyah, did you have any more? Did you want to emphasize on the startup?
Nothing to add there, no.
Okay. Well, it looks like we are out of time. Again, I want to thank the panelists, Tariq and Samson, for coming today. I also want to thank the recruiters, Mr. John, Mr. Leah, and Mr. Brandon, for coming today and taking the time out to express these powerful gems. So thank you for everybody who asked the questions. Thank you for everyone on board. The emails, as you guys can see, are located in the chat please don't forget to click the links or copy the links in your notes, or as well as copying the everyone's email address. Well, I thank you everyone for this amazing opportunity, and thank you again for taking the time out.
Thank you, Ian. Thank
Great
you
to
so
be
much
with you.
for the
Thanks.
invitation.
Thank you. You guys take care, man.
You too. Bye-bye.